Welcome to Stochastic NBA, live before lock for Saturday night. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with your old pal, EMac. You can find EMac on Twitter at EMac DFS. And this show is produced by Mike Lawrence, who, by the way, did the music. I know somebody just said the beat goes hard. Mike Lawrence made that music himself. You can find Mike on Twitter at AwesomeYo. This show is sponsored by Vivid Picks. Fantastic new way to play, similar to things like Prize Picks, to Underdog, all your parlay pick'em sites. The difference being on Vivid Picks, if you haven't already signed up, you can get your first deposit matched up to $300. So great time to sign up for Vivid Picks using our link, which is in the description of this video, and Mike will put it in chat for you as well if he hasn't already done so. I'm not looking at it right now, but fantastic place to play. Pick'em site. And of course, you need to be 21 plus, play in most places. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. While you guys are coming in, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. We're trying to get to 100,000 users, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. EMac and I are going to go game by game here. We're going to do that fairly quickly because we do want to show off the Sims tool for you a little bit, because we've got a fantastic deal right now on the Sims tool. Black Friday deal. You can get everything off for 50% off. So whatever package you want to take advantage of, tomorrow is the last day of this 50% off Black Friday deal. That link is also in the description of this video. Mike will also throw that up on the screen, but we want to show you how it works a little bit in case you're interested in checking out, because 50% off, you're not going to get that very often. Very, very powerful tool. We will look at that at the end of the show. EMac, I've done a lot of talking, have not allowed you to say a word yet. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's perfectly fine. I'm getting my hockey lineups in. I've got NCAA football lineups I got to work on for the 7 o'clock slate. I've got showdown hockey. I just did my tiers hockey. I've also did college football, or probably college basketball today. I did soccer this morning. I've kind of hitting it all. Thanks to the stochastic tools, I'm able to do the vast majority of that with just a little elbow grease on my side, a little contest selection, and keep climbing towards the 2.8 million crowns I'm sitting on. We have not gotten that Black Friday deal like we did last year. I don't think it's happening.
I feel like it would have happened by now if they were going to give us I know everybody wanted to buy more gift cards from DraftKings using their 50% off deal. Yeah, I think too many people took advantage of that, and DraftKings was like, all right, we're not just going to give you half off cards for everything. So yeah, unfortunately,
I'm sitting on $5,000 worth of crowns. I was ready, guys.
You were so ready. Yeah, I know you were.
I was just gonna give them right to the wife, and boom, she loves DFS again.
Yeah, that's the perfect solution, to be honest. All right, so we've only got 4 games to talk about here, Max, so it's going to be pretty easy for us. We're going to go quickly through these 4 games, then we're going to take a look at the Sims tool. But we start, and of course, I'm using EMac's notes here. So if I screw anything up, it's EMac's fault. Keep that in mind. First game is Atlanta at Washington. As you know, Atlanta last played Wednesday in a 147-145 overtime game in Brooklyn. They are playing tomorrow as well. Washington has looks like DeLon Wright is out, I'm assuming. Danilo Gallinari also resting, and then we have Koulibaly is probable. That's it, right? As far as ins and outs, I'll throw it to you, EMac. Start with, I know you like to start with a visitor, so start with Atlanta. Who do you like? Who are you playing tonight?
Sure. So we want to play a lot of this game. The game, I believe it officially crested over 250 for its projected point total. That is now the 4th or 5th one that we've had in the last 7 days. This is ridiculous, but I guess it's the new way things are going to happen.
Yeah, apparently.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. It just is. It's entirely different. And sometimes watching the game's not quite as fun because there's endless trips to the free throw line and not a lot of defense. So it's not a lot of like fast breaks, right? It's people just draining open threes, which is kind of cool, but not. It gets old without the defense.
EMac's an old school guy. He doesn't believe in all these 3-pointers. You do pick and rolls. You try to get a layup. Is that right, EMac?
When I was a freshman in high school, that was the first year the 3-point line was in our league. So, and then I remember the Seattle Supersonics beating the Washington Bullets, and there was I believe there was not a 3-point line at that point. That was in the mid to late 70s, and I think it came around in the late 70s, early 80s for the NBA. But I like it. I think the 3-point shot is great. I think it's done a lot to, when they put it out in college, it did a lot to open up things, got rid of the packed zones, all of that stuff. So I actually do like it. But it's more fun if somebody's playing defense. But we don't care tonight, Neil, because we have oodles and gobs of fantasy goodness available in this game. So key things we want to know. Trae Young, awesome. DeJounte Murray, University of Washington, go Huskies. They're playing the Cougars in the Apple Cup right now. He is their number 2 guy. They hog all the field goal attempts. It does look like Bogdanovic and Sadiq Bey have sort of filled in that void for John Collins. Now, we've talked about this on a couple shows, Neil. The Atlanta Hawks were kind of lacking that third score because it's not going to be Clint Capella. It's not going to be Owangu. It's kind of one of the revolving wings. It looks like those two are going to be there. DeAndre Hunter to a lesser extent, but it seems like it's settled on that. So key things are those 2 wings, the 2 guards. Anybody going against Washington is it's just going to be chef's kiss, beautiful, because we're looking at 2 teams with the bottom 3 in defensive efficiency, and 2 of the top 4 paces are playing each other tonight. That's just going to be fun. So that's for the Atlanta side. It's really those the 5 guys that I like, and Hunter is kind of optional.
The 5 guys, Young.
I count the center as
Bogdanovic. Okay.
Yeah, Adam sorry, I should have specified that. Adam and I talked about that this morning, and I asked him the question, right? Because everybody likes to know, can you play them together? And he said you could, but he said it's a little tougher this time because if the minutes flip went 26 Owangu and 22 Capella, you're kind of getting shortchanged a little bit because Capella is more expensive. And he said that's the only downside, but he said, caveat, 4-game slate. He said if he was building by hand, he wouldn't do it, but he said he wasn't planning on setting a rule to stop it. But I think what we're going to see is a lot of the Dallas centers coming into the mix here as the cheapies.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Once we get there, we'll talk about those Dallas centers. All right. So name them again. So you have 5 to
yes. So Murray and Trae Young are the top 2. And then I slightly have Sadiq Bey a little bit just for his pricing, a little bit above Bogdanovic.
Okay.
And then it's the centers. There's not a lot of opportunity cost at center tonight, meaning if I'm going to roster one of these guys, who can't I roster? Now we can use 2 of them on DraftKings. There's only 8 teams in the player pool tonight. FanDuel, we can only roster 1, but it's really Jonas Valanciunas is our only big name center. That's center only. Remember, FanDuel does have multi-position eligibility. I think it's their 3rd year they've had that. So the opportunity cost is you aren't going cheap with our Dallas options, which probably means you're not going to end up with Luka and Doncic on your rosters, but that's where you can put in a Kyle Kuzma, you can put in a DeJounte Murray, etc. Trae Young, right? Those you go that next step down and you get slightly different. So it should create some differentiation, but there are all the centers tonight, aside from the super cheapies, they all have very similar point per dollar.
Okay. Sounds good.
Ratios. So when I say point per dollar, I want to bring that up. That's when the optimizer is going to pick them up. If you're like 4.7 or below, usually on DK, the optimizer is not going to grab you unless you've capped some of your players, set other rules, etc. Put a lot of randomness on it, etc.
So we have 4 games on this slate, and we're already past. We're gonna try and finish this up by 6:40 Eastern time, doing the game by game.
I will go.
Then
faster.
We'll get into. No, I started late. I did a very long intro for us, so I delayed us a little bit. But I do want to ask you this question because I think it's a good one. From Jason Swing asks, would you set a max players per team tonight?
I haven't run my lineups yet. I don't think so. I think 3 is your default setting tonight. I mean, when you start to get to that 4th player, I can't think of teams where I'd really want to go 4. Because if you talk about Dallas, you're looking at the 2 cheap centers and their 2 primary guys. Okay, I wouldn't hate that, but I don't really want both centers. If we're talking Atlanta, okay, I like the 4 guys who aren't playing center. I wouldn't lose my mind if those were the guys on my lineup. They're in the best environment. I don't think you're going to get 4 Wizards. We'll talk about them in a second, but they kind of have some free-for-all players that I don't think I'd want 4. I can't think of 4 Wizards I would want on the same roster. Let's
Sure.
transition to those guys.
All right, let's talk about those Wizards. And yeah, I think you kind of answered. My answer would be 3 to 4, probably max. I don't think I'd go ever more than 4 on this slate. But yeah, tell me about the Wizards.
All righty. So Wizards, 3 games in 4 nights. They're not playing defense, which is phenomenal. They had that moment when they brought in Wes Unseld Jr. that they started playing defense briefly. They got that out of their system pretty well. I think they are officially trying to tank. They could have beaten Milwaukee in Milwaukee last night, and they lost by 3. 3 of their last 6 games have been by 3, 3, and 4 points. All losses, but those are coincidentally close. I think they're not looking to close these things out. So key things that you want to look at for the Atlanta has I didn't mention, but they've topped 125 points in regulations in 6 of their 14 games. Half the time this season, Atlanta is scoring 125 in regulation. That's just nuts. If you look at Jordan Poole, he played 34 minutes last night. He's the only player that cracked 31 minutes. I don't see any issues with these guys on a back-to-back. We've already ruled out Danilo Gallinari. He's only playing 14, 18 minutes per game. I don't expect we'll see him play back-to-back all season. He's just kind of a back-of-the-rotation guy. Kyle Kuzma is their best producer. He fills up the box score across the way. For him to get he has the best access to 50 fantasy points as well, or the most realistic opportunity at that, but he needs to make his shots. So that, I mean, yes, that makes sense, but he really needs to make them, because he can be content passing the ball and rebounding and only taking 15 shots instead of the 25 we'd like him to take when he needs to get up to 50 plus fantasy points. Daniel Gafford, one of yet another many centers here. I don't really want to play him tonight. I don't mind his PRA. I can't remember where it's set at, somewhere around probably 21.5. I liked the over on that. I bet that one last night on the pick'em sites. So since I'm in Florida and we're not enlightened enough to have sports wagering yet, I have to pick out my little pick'em parlay cards. But I do like that for Gafford. Tyus Jones has looked good the last 3 games. He was kind of in a wasteland for the first 2.5 weeks of the season. Very disappointing, but whatever it is, things have kind of straightened out a little bit. You can't say it's because it's the absence of DeLon Wright, because he has missed 7 games. So it's not like that's a new thing. He's been out for a while. So hopefully he's just getting used to an entirely new team. We've had a major turnover on the starting lineup for this. So a lot of guys are kind of playing together for the first time. And then you got Jordan Poole, who's not trying very hard, which surprises me. I figured he would be the glorious DFS hound. He is not. He is annoying. He is half-assing it. And as a borderline Washington Wizards fan who renounces my fandomship about 3 times a season, then I realize there's no more Seattle Supersonics and I go back to the Wizards, but I'm ready for him to be gone. I'm hoping they prop up his fantasy value. We can play him tonight. He's got great point per dollar upside. But he needs to start making his shots a little bit more. He's due for some positive regression, which we've seen over the last couple games. So it's really Poole, Kuzma, and Tyus Jones. Those are your main guys. Secondary players, Denny Avdia, love him. Not as a fantasy player, though, until he's taking his shots, but he is happy to pass. He's an incredibly efficient shooter. The coaches are like, please shoot more. He doesn't, which is kind of annoying, but okay. Corey Kispert, guns from the bench. He's very empty fantasy points, but you can play him tonight. And Landry Shamet is still relatively cheap, if I remember correctly. I think he's sub
3,200
on DraftKings.
Yeah, 3,200.
Yeah, so he's in play there. You're going to get somewhere between 10 and 22 minutes with him. He benefits from no Gallinari in that there's one less rotation guy that can provide offense. That could be Shamet, but Shamet does a little bit of everything and none of it very well. And scoring is one of the things he's below average at. So his hot hand will keep him on the court, but it's not a guarantee. Whereas Kispert, it's like they want him to take 5 or 6 3-pointers a game, right? That's part of the plan for Washington this year. That's not the plan with Landry Shamet, though.
Okay. I think that is a good synopsis of that game. Any other notes on the Washington Atlanta game?
No, I think that hits it.
All right. Lakers at Cavs. LeBron going home. We've got Jared Vanderbilt out, Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, Cam Reddish. We have LeBron questionable in this one. Looks like this was an island game that they last played Wednesday. Their next game is on Monday. And then Cleveland, we have Ty Jerome, Dean Wade out. Looks like Donovan Mitchell is probable, as is Isaac Okoro. They play tomorrow versus Toronto. I'm reading EMac's notes here. Did I get those all right, EMac?
I believe so. If I wrote it down, hopefully I wrote it down correctly.
All right.
So Mitchell being back kind of mucks things up a little bit here for Darius Garland, because he has had the run of the backcourt for the last 10 days by himself. It's a little tougher now with Mitchell coming back. I think it makes the team better. It's more competitive, all of that, but it's just not quite going to be the same for Garland. You can play him. I would assume they're not bringing Mitchell back too quickly. Would it shock me if he got the day off tomorrow and played full minutes tonight? No, not at all. It doesn't feel like a spot where they bring him on slowly today with 28 minutes and then have him play again tomorrow, right? Especially in the world of load management. It's like, no, if he's going to play tonight, he's probably ready. And if anything is slightly tweaked amiss or just not right when he wakes up tomorrow morning, he's not going to play on Sunday. That's my take on that. So, go ahead.
I want to mention this just because somebody brought it up in chat, and I see that we did get this note 45 minutes ago. Denny Avdia is now questionable with an illness, so that might change things a little bit for us. We should get that news before
that boosts back, right? Shamet and Kispert, but only because they get more minutes. They could miss all their shots in these extra minutes, but they are going to be on the court a little bit more. I guess Koulibaly becomes a little bit more in play at this point. I don't know what to do with them. And then who's their crappy first rounder from the other guy? Johnny Davis.
Johnny Davis.
He needs to go back and play for the Capital City Go-Go's.
Yeah, we've got Johnny Davis in for 10 minutes and 7 fantasy points. But yeah, would definitely get a boost with Avdia. So hopefully we'll get that
the homeless man's Landry Shamet with way more draft capital.
Hopefully we'll get that news before we look at the Sims. We can, it'll factor in, get all of our stuff updated. Hopefully we'll get it pretty soon. But we just, we'll update the tools once we get news on whether Avdia is playing. So sorry, back to the Lakers, EMac. Do you want to finish covering who you like on the Lakers?
So hitting on the Lakers, LeBron back in town, taking on he's in his old stomping grounds. I would expect him to play tonight. Again, I had Neil call out that island game. They really have nice spacing for this game. They have I believe it's Wednesday, Thursday of next week is their back-to-back. So I think he's going to be a full go tonight. In his last 2 games in Cleveland, he has averaged 38 minutes, 29.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, 8 assists, and combined 2 blocks and steals. I think that's a little high on the minutes, but let's put him in for 34 to 36. Move on. He's probably the 3rd or 4th best player on the slate. He's perfectly fine somehow, even though he's December 30th, I think is his birthday. So he's 5 weeks away from turning 39. And he's averaging nearly 50 fantasy points per game this season. So, hey, we have him on rest days and he's back in his home city. So let's have some fun with that. Anthony Davis, I think he got power forward eligibility again on FanDuel. So he's not really one of those center only plays. He would be the other sort of opportunity cost guy. He should be fine if one of those guys would sit jam in the other one. We already know that drill. After that, it's not particularly enthralling with the rest of their guys. You've got Cam Reddish, you've got Christian Wood, who has been awful. And even though Rui Hachimura is out, God only knows what Christian Wood is going to do. He has 2 games of more than 20 fantasy points. And I think they've come in 2 of his last 4 games or 2 of his last 3 games, whatever it is. But he has some just horrid game logs in there. He has all the opportunity in the world now, and I don't think he's going to take advantage of it. Cleveland's not the best matchup. They are pretty good on defense. You start to look at some of the other guys. I guess D'Angelo Russell is fine, but I'd rather play one of the Atlanta guards and drop down a pricing level somewhere else, or I'd probably rather play Tyus Jones than Russell. It's really the 2-man game here for these guys. Maybe you look for Prince. Maybe you look for Austin Reeves for some differentiation, but I'd still rather get players on in that first game than really any of the tertiary players from the Lakers.
Oh, I see Mike already has the Sims tool on the screen for now. We'll take a closer look at this later, because I'd like to get that Avdia news before we run the Sims, because that's obviously going to impact a lot. But this is a good first look that Mike has given us at the Sims. Mike, can you also actually pull up the boom bust? I wouldn't mind just having the boom bust up there as we talk about some of these plays, because I'm just noticing, like, D'Lo, I agree with you. Like, Tyus Jones looks better in a vacuum, but D'Lo at 7% ownership becomes kind of interesting to me. So that there are, players that maybe aren't the best point per dollar, but because of the ownership, we got to consider that might look good in the boom bust. Just maybe kind of think maybe that's something worth sharing.
That's actually a good point, Neil. And since I don't get to sit in the analyst chair all that often, I'm usually looking at this from kind of making a main lineup, three or four lineups, or your core portfolio. And then from there, I'm letting the other guys sprinkle in, or if I'm building out my 100 lineups, I'm just letting the rest of the tools do all the heavy lifting for me. But those are good call outs here from that standpoint, and that's something. I think it's a good visual looking at the boom bust tool. That's all incorporated in the Sims and in the lineup generator and all of that. That's part of all the magic that's happening in the background. But sometimes it's good to get that visual as you're trying to talk about certain players. I mean, all of a sudden I'm dismissing somebody and you're like, wait, if I knew he was going to be 7% owned,
right,
and I played the guy that's 35% owned that projects for 2 more fantasy points, but they have a similar upside, wouldn't I rather had the guy that less people are on? Because if the other guy doesn't do as well and he does better, I win. Exactly. That micro battle, I got to win across 8 other lineup spots, but that's the part that's missing in some of the analysis I'm giving right now.
Yeah, so it's good analysis, but yeah, I feel like this just adds another layer. Just looking at the boom bust is a tool that I like to look at to just figure out what are the odds of success versus ownership. Could you sort by optimal odds, Mike? Yeah, that's the column there. So people can kind of take a look at that as we're talking about it. But moving on to Cleveland, do you want to tie a bow on this game, EMac?
Yes. So I'm good with Mitchell. I'm sure it'll be a monitor as minute situation, but I would expect him to be around what his normal minutes are. I'm fine with Garland. I guess I'm okay with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, but not as excited about those guys. LeBron and Davis are pretty good rebounders. In that just makes it a little bit tougher when the other team has 2 or 3 good rebounders and you're going against your own teammates and the other team. It's harder for me to get excited about those guys. Plus, with Jared Allen being center only, we like guys at the high end. We like the bargain bin guys today. So sprinkle them in across your lineups. I wouldn't say, oh my God, I can't believe I went into battle with one of those guys on my lineups, but I'm not actively clicking on their names.
Okay, makes sense. You want to move on to the next game?
Yes.
All right, Pelicans at Jazz, and this game is two hours later. So we have Atlanta, Washington, right at 7:00 Eastern. Lakers at Cleveland, 7:30, and then we have a long break between before the next game, which is New Orleans, Utah, 9:30, and then Dallas Clippers at 10:30. So you have some time there. Maybe we'll get some breaking news there. But moving on first to the New Orleans game, we have looks like CJ McCollum is out, could return next week. Zion doubtful. I think those are the only players that appear unlikely to play for the Pels. And then for Utah, we have Lauri Markkanen out, Jordan Clarkson out with an illness. Walker Kessler is questionable. They last played Wednesday. Their next game is on Monday. Good notes there. Let's start with the New Orleans side. EMac, who do you have interest in here?
Alrighty, so it's interesting when they don't have CJ McCollum. You do get a little bit of an assist boost there for Brandon Ingram, though we do have Jose Alvarado returning to action. He came back 2 days ago. I believe last game was the first time he had played it. He might have played 2 games this season. He's been poised to come back, but he finally has now. They'll get CJ McCollum. They're tentatively getting him back mid next week or at least by the weekend. Let's see, what else do I want to call it here? I think Jonas Valanciunas, this is a good matchup for him. I like him as one of our top end center only options. He can rack up the points when everything's going in his favor. This is a matchup where I think that would be the case. No Markkanen, no Clarkson, so that means you're going to see probably smaller lineups, which could be the one Achilles heel there for Jonas Valanciunas, but I still expect you'll see him for 24 to 29 minutes would be my guess. And he can be effective out there. It's just that if the other team, he's not the best rim protector. But if he's scoring on the other end, it doesn't matter, right? it evens things out a little bit. So he would be my third favorite play. My second favorite play, I guess, would be Zion, and Ingram would be my favorite play. I just get a little nervous with Zion on back-to-backs. It just
makes sense.
Something happens, something got tweaked. We've seen him miss dozens of games in a row. I think they play it safe. It's just there may be a 5% extra wrinkle of, he's going into the locker room and not coming back out tonight.
We did get a super chat, EMac, best cash plays at each position on DraftKings.
Can we circle back?
Yeah, well, okay, we can circle back to the best.
But I will answer that. I'm changing for my hockey lineups, and I'm going to upload our latest run here. I was hoping we get that last update. Let me just see.
Okay, and honestly, it might change also depending on Denny Avdia news. Maybe we'll get new news on.
All right, we'll do them. Let's do them right before we go to the Sims. I'll have everything up and ready for them.
Cool. All right, then how about Utah? So you talked about the New Orleans side. How about the Utah side of this game?
That's part of why I want to upload this stuff, because I did not somehow I missed that both Clarkson and Markkanen were chance they would both miss. Okay. I thought Clarkson would be out, but I thought Markkanen would play, and that has sort of mucked with what I was thinking. So let's go look here. So we currently aren't projecting anybody for more than 35 DraftKings points. It's John Collins, for those wondering. We have Taylor Horton Tucker, Colin Sexton, John Collins, and Keontae George all look pretty good from a point per dollar perspective on both sites. That helps you potentially differentiate a little bit from the Washington, Atlanta side of things. Maybe you swap out some of these wings for these guys, because you can get Horton Tucker, you can get Collins. And I didn't mention Simon Fontecchio. Simon Fontecchio really has like a hard cap of 15 fantasy points. He has broken through twice this season. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 times this season.
People pointed out that Zion is out. I mean, we already had him doubtful, so I think we already had
did
Zion
he get ruled
out of our stuff. But yeah, apparently he's officially out.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry about that, guys. When I went and did it, he was still doubtful. So the stuff I was looking at wasn't updated.
I mean, we said he was doubtful. There's really no difference. People are really making a big deal.
So play Jonas Valanciunas. Guess what? Jonas Valanciunas can still get run off the court because it's John Collins and probably Kelly Olynyk. But that means now New Orleans is down 2 starters, and Joe Val's probably. You want to say is their second best scorer available tonight or third? Neil,
who's this?
Jonas Valanciunas. I'm trying to say, like, what is Zion being
of the available
change anything for me? So I would say, Joe Val's their second best scorer that's going to be on the court. So maybe he won't get run off. They'll just deal with it because it's the regular season. Who gives a damn about defense anyway? That gives me a little boost for Ingram, where I was mentally on him, and I believe Najee Marshall becomes kind of interesting. The rest of the guards and / Herbert Jones are going to be what they were going to be, because we've seen what's happened without.
We just got some good news here. Donovan Mitchell and Denny Avdia also available to play tonight. So we got the news, the big news that we had been waiting on. Good to have that. And we don't have to now take Avdia out of all of our stuff. So that is good to see.
All right. So sorry. So coming back here on the Pels, circling back, I think Ingram and Joe Val are top 8 plays convincingly tonight. Okay. I think when I thought Zion might play, they were like, 11th and 12th. And Zion wasn't ahead of him. It was just he was taking opportunities that now potentially could go to them. But if we look, I know Joe Val played 28 minutes last night. What did he play? Ingram played 35 minutes, so it's not like they had a ton of minutes.
Okay,
Perfect. To Utah.
All right,
back to Utah. In the air. That's the answer for Utah. Kelly Olynyk becomes yet another center. I actually like Keontae George a little better than Colin Sexton, though Sexton should have pretty secure minutes in the 24-ish range, would be my guess. Potential upside for a little bit more, but there's not, now Clarkson isn't going to take his spot. Keontae George probably is secure up to almost 30 minutes, which is about what he had been getting as well. He has been sort of, let's call it point, I don't have the numbers up, but I'm guessing he's about a 0.85, 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. I think he's reasonable tonight in this one. And then I would probably skip Walker Kessler.
Okay.
So Walker Kessler, dum-de-dum-de-dum, amazing game, and then hurt his elbow. 43 fantasy points the last time we saw him. That was on 20 days ago. So his game before that, 15 fantasy points in 22 minutes, 27 in 25, 13 in 18, 45 in 29, 10 in 24, 12 in 21, 19 in 22. That's not exciting. Remember, it took him a while to get going last year. If he beats me, he beats me. If he drops a 40, I'm okay.
I feel like I would take the other side of that one, only because we've got Clarkson and Loria. So I'm like, with those two out, I feel like we've seen Walker Kessler produce in the past. Maybe he takes on a little bit more of a scoring role here. Maybe he gets some more minutes because they're limited. So I think that I have more interest in Walker Kessler than you do.
Okay. That's fair.
Right.
I do like their guards, and I think
Yeah.
John Collins looks pretty good because he's power forward eligible.
Yeah.
So as much as you're liking Kessler, I'm looking at him doing battle with so many other centers. Any one of them could gobsmack me. He's part of the field that could reach up and rip my heart out and show it to me while it's still beating. That's what happens when you finish second in a winner take all. That's the kind of feeling you get that Kessler could drop on you tonight.
True. All right. Anything else on the Jazz before we move on to the final game of the night?
Nope. Look at that. We're almost on time here.
And we got another super chat to go over tiers. So we'll finish the final game of the night. Then we'll go over the cash game options at each position. We'll go over tiers, and then we'll take a look at the sim. So final game of the night, we have Dallas at the Clippers. We have Maxi Kleber out, Derek Lively out. It's an island game. They last played on Wednesday. The next game is Tuesday. For the Clippers, we have Plumlee out. It looks like it's only Plumlee out if I'm reading these right. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Let's start with the Dallas side of the game. Who do you like?
Alrighty, so Dallas, we absolutely love Luka Doncic. There's your cash game staple of the night. He is essentially averaging what he averaged the last 4 seasons. He's a tiny bit more efficiency. He has got a 34% usage rate. I believe Kyrie Irving is at 27 or 28. And then the rest of the guys are like in the mid-20s, but that's because they're getting the usage when those two guys are not on the court. When those two guys are on the court, they get it all. We do have an interesting player with Rashawn Holmes. Adam and I talked about this at length this morning. We want the starter. We're not sure who it's going to be. We both think that Rashawn Holmes is the better fantasy option. Literally at every stop he's had in his career, save for when Sacramento was yanking him around at the end of last season and sort of banished him to the bench, he was averaging a fantasy point per minute. His rookie year, when he was a full-time starter, when he was a part-time starter, when he was a full-time reserve, literally he averages a fantasy point per minute. So he can probably handle his own here. He's at a reasonable price point on both sides. I think we're just perfectly fine looking at that. Adam was saying that if you make sure you plan for it accordingly, maybe put the more expensive guy in at center, and then you can decide if you want to drop to the other, depending on if you need to catch up, if you need to do something different, if you're needing Hail Mary. That would be the only thing that I would add, but I would lean towards Rashawn Holmes there. Otherwise, it's Doncic as a priority play, Irving as a secondary option, and then the centers. I'm not excited about anybody else. Somebody could get a hot hand, but we're projecting most of them for between 17 and 21 fantasy points. That's not very exciting.
Okay. Any other notes on this game before we go? We'll do the cash game options.
The Clippers. They did play last night. Westbrook only played 14 minutes. They lost. They had won their first 3 games when Westbrook was coming off the bench. Last night was the first time they lost. They are, if they lose tonight, they will be, I think they're back to 500, or the win gets them 500. In any event, they're a meandering ship at this point. I expect regular minutes for everybody, but if it's lopsided in either direction, Kawhi's going to get some time off. But he did play the only back-to-back he had. I believe it was right around Halloween. And going from memory, I think he played like 35 minutes, and then the next night he played 41. So I would expect about his average projection tonight, and then the coach can decide what they want to do. The bench is an absolute unmitigated disaster. PJ Tucker, Daniel Tice are a mess. Westbrook, we don't know what's going on there. He would get mop-up duty, would be my guess. Norman Powell is arguably the scorer off the bench, but I'm not really excited about him. I don't want to play Terrence Mann. His 6% usage rate around all those other main starters was key. And Ivica Zubac, I thought he would play more minutes last night. I think he ended up playing like 22. I am a little nervous about him as well, because they went to PJ Tucker for stretches. We know PJ Tucker can play center and all of that. I just think Zubac is a different type of offensive player, but I think he's better at this point than stand in the corner and launch threes PJ Tucker. So that was my disappointment there.
But I mean, he's a much better fantasy player. We can agree on that for sure.
George is probably a priority play. I'm neutral on Kawhi and Harden to answer those questions.
Okay.
Cash games for everybody.
Let's go cash game plays. Who are the best? We'll start at point guard. Who's your favorite point guard for cash games?
Point guard, I think you want to go, Luka. Secondary would be Trae Young. Your cheapie would be not so cheapie, but Keontae George would be the guy I would like. I think Tyus Jones is okay.
What about Colin Sexton? I mean, we have Colin Sexton as one of the best point per dollar values on the slate.
We do, because he's about $1,000 less than Keontae George. But I don't know. I can't seem to get Colin Sexton right.
Okay. I mean, to me, Colin Sexton is the one that to me stands out as a cash game play, just based on the ownership and the point per dollar. We have him at 39% ownership, 5.80x value. So to me, it would be Colin Sexton and Luka would be the two stand out to me at point guard.
You know who I'm going to play at shooting guard?
I do
know Horton Tucker and Colin Sexton, because Colin Sexton looks better at shooting guard. I think you look at Paul George and Brandon Ingram as your spendy plays. I'm not really excited about Jordan Poole and cash, but the volume should be there to at least support the 5x multiplier that we are always searching for. Small forward, we already mentioned THT and George. I think LeBron James enters the mix here as the next best guy. Power forward, I think it's going to be John Collins is one. If you're not going with LeBron, Kyle Kuzma. If you're not going with either of those guys, guess Sadiq Bey, but I'd rather go with Kuzma, James, or Collins at power forward. And then at center, I would play Rashawn Holmes.
All right, I think those are good enough. We got through all of the positions. Now let's take a look at tiers. Have you looked at tiers at all yet today, EMac, or are we gonna
give me one sec?
Look at it for the first time? I'm gonna pull it up.
I used to play tiers every day.
Did you really? I've never gotten into
tiers. I had to cut
tiers.
a few things out, and I do better in NHL tiers. You guys are missing out if you're not doing NHL tiers.
It does strike me as like a unique format that maybe not a lot of pros are playing, so maybe it's a little bit softer. So maybe tiers is the way to go. But I'll hand it over to you for tiers.
What happened with why is my stuff not uploading here?
So it's between LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Trae Young in tier 1.
Okay, there. Sorry. Trae Young is for sure number 1. LeBron would be number 2. In tier 2, gets interesting. I would lean towards Brandon Ingram 1, but everybody is within a point of each other. My preference is Brandon Ingram. The projections slightly favor Paul George.
Yeah, it's very close. They're all super close. Yeah,
they're literally all within a 1.5 of each other. I think Kyle Kuzma would be my preference for tier 3, but DeJounte Murray also a fine option. If you're looking for a tiebreaker, lean Murray. He didn't play last night. Kuzma did. Tier 5, I'd probably go James Harden. You know who we didn't mention when I talked about Atlanta? We didn't mention Jalen Johnson. He's not really that extra scoring option. He can score, but he can also rebound. and he can also get assists and steals and blocks. He kind of is a little bit of a do everything guy, and I tend to forget about him. But when he puts it all together, he hits 40 fantasy points. If any part of his game fails, he kind of fails too. But I would not play him. I would not play Westbrook. It's really Kawhi or Harden. I would go with Harden. Tier 5, I'd probably go Collins. Jonas Valanciunas projects better, but Collins, I would go Collins. And then tier 6, Keontae George would be my guy. Tyus Jones would be my second, and then we have Capella projected the best, but he would be my third choice.
Okay, sounds good. What
and
are
if
we
you
doing
play
with
some of the Washington Atlanta guys, you can get some synergy.
Yeah. So for Dallas, once we get a center named as a starter, do you think we're gonna up the minutes, or do you think we currently have Rashawn Holmes in there for 24.5 minutes? Do you think that assumes that he is the starter?
I think it assumes he has the best potential to close.
Okay. Just trying to think of what I need to do if I'm going to like save a spot in case one of these guys is going to end up.
I would play the more expensive of the two.
That being
if you're going to be doing
Holmes.
late swap, and leave the opportunity open for you to go to the other if you so choose.
Yeah,
because it's only a couple $100, and they're reversed on the two sites. I think I forget which. Howell is, this is riveting. Holmes is 4,100 on DK. Howell is 3,600. So that is $500 difference. And I believe it's flipped by like $100. I think they're 37 and 36 or 38 and 37 on FanDuel. And Holmes is more expensive. I like Holmes better. I think I'm going to play him in all circumstances. But if I was going to be doing some late swapping, I'd try to make sure I had the flexibility to go there. I don't think for me it would be driven on who's starting or who's not starting. It would be where do I think the field is going and how much of a desperation play do I need to make up ground. If everything was neutral, I'd rather play Rashawn Holmes, whether he's off the bench or starting.
Okay, makes sense. I think let's take a look at the Sims tools. I think we have looked at the games enough. We can, if we get any more breaking news, we'll let you guys know. But Mike, can we pull up the Sims? Or maybe he already has. Let me see if no, not pulled up yet. All right, Mike is going to pull up the Sims tool for us. I know this is always fun for the audience to be able to see what the Sims are giving us. And I don't think we have anything that's going to change between now and lock necessarily. Now that we have Avdia in already. How
we know
recently
Avdia, we know Mitchell. The only thing is, before lock, nothing's going to change.
Okay. I mean, we already have Avdia in there. So maybe let's try and see what happens if you run the Sims now.
Yeah, as long as Zion is out, then we're fine.
All right, yeah. Let's do that then. All right, so we're regenerating the lineups with all the updated news, with updated ownership, with updated projections. Everything is up to the minute now as Mike is running this. So let's see if we get anything cool here. Oh, so let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats or anything. No, looks like we're good on that front. Mike is in the process
Picks, though.
All right.
If you guys go to Vivid Picks, you get up to a $300 deposit match and your first card.
Oh, that's a good point.
$25. If it loses, they'll give you Vivid site credit. That's
I forgot to say that part.
If you don't come in through our link, it's only $100 deposit match. Come in through our link.
Yeah, it's I mentioned that we have the up to $300 deposit bonus, which is much better than most plays. I did not mention the secure play earlier. So you're basically your first play up to $25. So I'd recommend your first play on there being at least $25, because whatever your play is, it's secured up to $25. So you're going to get that back in money that you can bet again on Vivid Pick. So yeah, take advantage of that if you haven't already done so. The link is in the description of this video. Now Mike is running the sim. So we've already generated the lineups in the Sims tool. Now the Sims are in it just finished simming all of the lineups against each other, so we can see what the top lineup is in terms of simulated ROI should be at the top here. I cannot read this. I feel so old sometimes when we have the Zoom is where I'm reading it. I'm like, I can't read the. I'll have to pull it up on my phone. It's not actually me being old, by the way, for people who are curious. It's just that for whatever reason in Zoom, it's like super blurry always. So I'm going to
The
pull
top
that
lineup
up.
is Trey Young, Jordan Poole, THT, John Collins, Holmes, Sexton, Paul George, and Jordan Hawkins.
I was getting to a lot of Jordan Hawkins. That's interesting. What do you
Did
think
you
of
say that so the audience could hear it too?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are awesome.
Okay.
That is
Good,
producer
good.
Mike, everybody.
All right. I gotta close the chat, make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's even harder to read on my phone. That was a bad idea. I thought it was gonna be bigger there. Maybe more clear if I put it up close, but no, that did not work for me. So I'm gonna have to do it on my
right.
computer and just turn
For
off the
those
volume.
looking to get Neil something for Christmas, we can crowdsource some bifocals.
That's funny. That's very funny, EMac.
Although I was informed by my brother they're not called bifocals anymore.
What are they called?
I don't know. There's some of their adjustables.
Readers?
I don't know. There's some of their names.
I don't know. Okay, now I have it on my screen now. It's much clearer when I'm just looking at it on YouTube. Now I can see the top plays and can you show us the exposures again, Mike? Just sort by like top exposures. And this is you have so Mike has the top 150. So in terms of simulated ROI, Mike has favorited the top 150 lineups. So we're just seeing which players show up the most in the top 150 lineups in the Sims, and it's THT coming into 92% of our lineups. He is the best point per dollar play on the site. We haven't projected as a 6x value, just really popping in the Sims there. Second, we have Colin Sexton, another one of, I think he's our second best point per dollar play. So it's going to give you, and that's what you find more with NBA than like NHL. You often are just going to get a lot of the best point per dollar plays, the best projected plays overall. Like that is going to be a big part of your lineups because NBA is so projectable. Those often are the best plays. Now there are going to be players mixed in who are maybe this player is 2%, as we talked about earlier. This player is 2 fantasy points worse than the other player, but he's getting 30% less ownership. Well, then suddenly those players are going to look really good too. But in NBA, a lot of the time you are just getting some of the best point per dollar, the best projected plays on the slate, and you see that here with the Jazz guys at the top being the best point per dollar plays on the slate. So yeah, a lot of Utah at the top. Trey Young in there. How much do we get of Luka, Mike? Can you find that?
Yeah. Wow, he's very low. Luke Seminatic.
Really, we did not get much Luka. That's really interesting. Surprised me a little bit. I wonder why that is, and I bet I can, if I look at the boom bust tool, maybe that'll give me a good idea of why we're not getting to a ton of Luka. Maybe just okay. Oh, so it's not like not showing up in our lineups. That's still a good amount of a pretty expensive
Yeah,
player.
25%.
Okay, so and we have Luka projected for 14% ownership, 22% chance of being optimal. So we actually are getting to higher than we're expecting the field to be at on Luka. So that's good to see. Any other players that you're interested in seeing the ownership on, EMac?
Where did you say Colin Sexton?
I believe Colin Sexton was one of the top in terms of who we're getting to the most. Is that right, Mike?
That is 75%, just north of 75.
EMac doesn't like it.
I would probably trust the tools. I mean, that's
the thing.
Point.
I tend to play around, I think, too much. I know Greg basically just like he runs the tools and he'll run late swap and stuff, but he often just plays like the top optimal guys. Like he's trusting the tools, and he has been absolutely smashing by just using the Sims tool and running what it gives him without tinkering too much. So that's something I need to work on when I'm using the Sims, as opposed to like an optimizer. You don't need to tinker nearly as much. You're going to get some great plays. So yeah, these are the plays that we're getting as of right now at the top. Obviously, you always need to keep in mind, like, if injury news can change things, or starting lineup news, like whatever news you get throughout the night changes things pretty drastically in NBA. So this is what we're getting right now. Whether this is what we're going to be getting an hour from now or after we get some news, things could obviously change a bit. Yeah, Nick asking who's 92%. Yeah, that was Talon Horton Tucker. We were getting to a ton of Talon Horton Tucker. He is our top point per dollar play on the slate, so not all that shocking. All right. Colin Sexton, Trey Young, our best pay up option in the tools. And what do we have as ownership at? Does it show you there, Mike?
Yeah, in this pool,
Simulated.
it's 29% here.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Simulate it.
yep. And you'll notice sometimes in the Sims, like the amount you get of a player in the Sims tool or in your player pool might be a little bit different than the projected ownership, like just because everybody's getting different pools, so it's not going to be, you're not going to get exactly the same ownership in your pool as we have the player projected for, but usually it's going to be pretty close, and that whatever the amount you get in the field is essentially what the ownership is in your pool of 10,000 lineups. So that's always interesting to me to look at, like how far off is the projected ownership versus the actual representation in your 10,000 lineups, because that can affect things a little bit.
Except for the people that get Jordan Poole.
Except for the people that get Jordan Poole, because his name is Poole. Obviously, that changes the equation for EMac. All right, what else? So we have, this is 50% off currently. Now, EMac, I am in a non-betting state, so I don't use Odd Shopper. I know everybody else at our site has been crushing it using Odd Shopper, but we do also have 50% off on Odd Shopper. Use the link in the description. It'll be 50% off your first payment. So whether it's weekly or it's monthly, whatever deal you want to take advantage of, Odd Shopper uses a market-based approach to figure out the best bets out there. So it's analyzing books against each other, also taking into account which books tend to be sharper than the other books. Like we have a long history of which books tend to have the sharpest lines, and it's weighing those against other books to find where can we find deals to take advantage of on other books. So if you are in a legal betting state, Odd Shopper, a really powerful tool. Of course, I get it for free and I can barely use it in Minnesota, but you can still use it in places like we do still have packages for things like Prize Picks, Underdog, Vivid Picks. All those sites are also, we have parlay builders in Odd Shopper, so you can use it wherever you are. Of course, it's if you have sports betting, that is extra powerful there. But yeah, really cool. Shows you, it's looking at books against each other, finding the best lines for you. Really powerful tools. And you, Greg has been posting his ROI, and it's just consistently really strong ROI using the Odd Shopper tools. I know Lindy uses Odd Shopper for his likes, leans, and locks, finding some of the best plays. It's a great tool. And Aton, Lafiel, everybody who can do sports betting uses Odd Shopper frequently. Fantastic tool. Also 50% off. Also link in the description. Anybody else? Any questions? Anything else you want us to look at, guys? We got a few minutes to kill here. EMac, do you have your lineups in?
I am getting Max Christie.
Max Christie.
And I think he's 3,500. He's small forward eligible. We have him for 17 fantasy points.
He's 3,500.
It's all because he's 3,500, really.
We got 8% in the sim we just ran.
8%?
So, yeah, which is under the field of that pool of about 13. So just under the field.
I got to about right where the field is on Max Christie. I didn't even realize. Like, I was just looking. I was like, oh yeah, I got to some Max Christie, which is the nice thing about using tools, is they're going to give you, they're going to outsmart you. They're going to be smarter than you most of the time. We just got the Cavs lineup. I think it looks Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus. Who else was it? Just Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. So exactly what you'd expect for the Cavs lineup. We have Anthony Davis in, LeBron in, so nothing we need to change there. That's good to see. A lot of stuff just coming out as you'd expect. Hey Neil, how far are you from Lake Okoboji on the Minnesota and Iowa border? I would guess I'm a couple hours away. I don't really know where Lake Okoboji is. That's a good question. Is it anywhere near that casino that's right on the Minnesota Iowa border? Let me look it up. Thanks for asking a question here. Oh, it looks like I'm 3 hours away from Lake Okoboji. I'm in St. Paul, so not all that close to Lake Okoboji.
Oh, I never knew where you were in St. Paul.
Oh yeah. Oh, look at Mike throwing up the screen there with the starting lineup for the Wiz. Where did we get that?
Good God, Simon Fontecchio is on 40% of my lineups. This is what happens when you try to get 50% Luka Doncic. You end up with the Max Christies and the Simon Fontecchios of the world. I did not get Landry Shamet. I
just
believe
jamming Luka into your lineups.
Is playing.
You don't want to play Trey Young instead? Maybe you can play better cheap players if you play Trey Young. Okay.
No. I'm concentrating on. It's all about the PMR on Saturday.
Near man. Yeah, a lot of weird lake names.
Oh boy.
We got a news got alert. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Already
Okay.
already mentioned that. But yes, that is important to give the news god shout out for the alert there. Mike, what is the ownership on Anthony Davis looking like for FanDuel? I bet I can find it too, but maybe you can pull up the boom bust and show us the Anthony Davis ownership on FanDuel. I'm pulling it up too. Actually, I probably need to refresh. Looks like Mike also refreshing. Let's see. Anthony Davis, scrolling. We've got him at 12.6%, looks like. Oh yeah, you've got it up now too. Yeah, we've got he's about neutral to where we have him optimal around like 13%. I can't read what your screen says, but I think it's probably about the same as what I have.
16.4 optimal on FanDuel.
Good call. I was on DraftKings. That's my mistake. Yeah, good call there. So looks like an okay play. Yeah. Yeah, actually slightly under him. So we have him at 15.4 owned, 16.4 optimal. That's good to see. And a 19% chance of booming. So a little bit of positive leverage on Anthony Davis. All right. Ethan says always the risk of a hangnail with AD. I feel like he's not as bad as he was a few years back. Would you agree with that, EMac? Like I feel like
we don't talk about that until he's not playing that day.
Okay, all right.
We do not
because you don't want to jinx him.
No.
All right. Well, I feel like it's gotten at least better in recent years. He's not like always missing mid-game, leaving the game. I used to be like I never wanted to play him. It was like
it got to the point where it was pretty scary.
Yeah. All right. Porter Jr. is interesting. Obi-Wan says. Timmy thinks Fontecchio is gonna smash tonight. Kind of makes me want to have some Italian food. Just reading Fontecchio.
I'm having Italian food for dinner.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Is it homemade Italian food? Are you going out?
It is. My wife's grandmother's family recipe, mostaccioli.
Is your wife's grandmother still alive?
She is not.
Okay. But still got the mostaccioli recipe. That's good.
Got the mostaccioli.
All right. It doesn't look like we're getting any more breaking news before the end of the show. Yeah, I think all the news that I'm seeing we already have. So that is good to know. Hopefully everybody is getting your lineups in because we've got about a minute left. CB wants you to explain Daily Joust to me, EMac. I don't know what that is.
Daily Joust was a site that once upon a time had one of the best gigs out there. You would take on, it was founded by two brothers, and one of them did their projections, and you could take on the site. They would set, like, you would build your lineup and you'd have to beat like a target score. Okay. And they would like spend hours trying to figure it out, and then we would just go hammer the hell out of it. It's good times there. I had my first big win there, $5,000 about 3 months into playing daily fantasy sports.
So you're they have a set like score that you're trying to beat, or a set
it lineup. Was one of their formats that they had. It was called beat the house or something, beat the jack. I forget what it exactly.
Well, FanDuel used to have not the exact same thing, but I don't know if they still do. FanDuel used to have contests that I used to really love. That was like beat the score, and it'd be like for NBA, it'd be like, and they'd have different levels of like 270, 300, 330, whatever it is, and whoever beat it would split with everybody else who beat it. So that, and obviously they take the rake, but I always enjoyed that as like you're not only cheering for yourself to beat the score, you're also cheering for everybody else to fail. So that was kind of a fun format, that FanDuel. I don't know if they still have it. I haven't played as much FanDuel recently, but I used to love that on FanDuel.
They used to have like a weekly eliminator contests. Like you'd play every day. They'd launch a new one every day, and then you just would set your lineups, and then like half the field would go out each day, and they'd last 4 or 5 days. It's pretty good.
It's good picture, Mike. All right, we are past lock. EMac has to go get some mostaccioli. I need to go out to eat. EMac, any final words for the people?
No, but let's have fun. An interesting slate tomorrow for NFL. You're going to get all the content at I believe we start at 9 o'clock, 8:45 maybe. Tomorrow, it's a unique slate. Nobody was on buys, but the Black Friday game and the 2 extra Thursday games sort of served that purpose of taking some of the players out of the player pool. There's some wonky running back selections. Check out my article on the homepage. I kind of broke down some of the top tier plays at each position. Quarterback, there's a couple obvious plays, but nobody's getting more than 15% on either site right now. So this can be one hell of a tournament slate tomorrow, because there's no I want this game. And if somebody starts doing it, I want this game, there are so many pivots. It's going to be a fun one tomorrow.
Yeah, check out. Okay.
I have a great shirt for everybody to see.
Let's see it.
Not the Sixers.
Look at that guy.
Yeah.
Future president, Eric McPherson.
That's what we're talking about. 2024.
I have the same shirt, by the way. I didn't wear it for the show, but I do have the same shirt. Yeah. I have worn it on a show with EMac before. A couple times I've worn that shirt. I think I've worn it before and like not even remembered to show you, or like you haven't noticed. But it is a great shirt. Hopefully we can get the same thing with the stochastic avatar now, because that's an awesome shirt. But still, yeah, we're all rooting for EMac to be the president in 2024. All right, time to go get some food. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us for this last hour. It has been fun. I'm finally done with live shows for the day. Go read EMac's NFL article, and then also go check out, I did tournament strategy with Greg this morning, Outside the Box with Scott Barrett this afternoon. So plenty of NFL content that I did today as well that you can check out if you haven't heard it. So thank you guys very much for hanging out with us. Hit the like button. Good luck tonight.